Is death dead? With the newest 5.5 edition of D&D, it might be. I'm not saying a player character needs to die every session, but when's the last time you played or DM'd a session where it truly felt like you were one bad roll away from losing a character forever? D&D is a game about telling stories, but the best part is that neither the DM nor the players know how that story is going to end. That's why we roll those little math rocks. However, in the 5.5 update to Dungeons & Dragons, and even in 5th edition a little bit, players now have an absurd amount of ways to re-roll those dice, change the outcomes, heal constantly, and otherwise cheat death. They're nearly... And this gets even more prevalent as they level up. This makes it more and more difficult to challenge your players, which makes it even harder to have actual stakes in your games. My name is Sam, I'm a Dungeon Master and former teacher, and in this video, we're gonna look at what removes those stakes, and a simple modification I dug up that you can use to add the danger back.
Pick it up.
This isn't new, it's something DMs have been doing for 2 decades, and it's proven to work. At least that's what the internet told me, and the internet never lies. This is Tabletop University. In my last video, I touched on a subject where it is really hard to make a combat that has real stakes, that actually threatens your players, mainly due to your players having 6 brains versus your 1. So feel free to throw the kitchen sink at them here and trust that they will probably get through it at higher levels. But this isn't always an issue. In reality, it has a lot less to do with brain power and more to do with the level of your players. Not to bury the lead here, but the biggest issue I have with high level play is that as you level up, character death no longer becomes something to worry about.
Having just come off of Fantasy High junior year, where we'll end the season on level 14, at that point, you're almost... It takes a lot to kill you at that point, and we wanted to have a little bit more of an element of danger in this.
As challenge rating, hit point totals, hit dice, abilities, spell slots, they all start to increase, it gets harder and harder to balance encounters or to even challenge your players at all. But there is a solution. It fixes all those issues, but still allows your players to progress in their abilities while keeping death as an ever-present threat in the world. And it's been around for 19 years, but I had never heard of it until...
It's Cloudward Ho!
In Cloudward Ho, the Dimension 20 crew shifted from standard D&D to a modification of it called Epic Level 6. Because of this change, this was one of my favorite seasons of D20 because for the first time in a long time, it felt like there were actual stakes. Like the characters could actually die if they did something wrong.
That's a nat 20.
In an article from Mashable, Brennan explains the reason to take Dimension 20 to Epic Level 6. Fantasy has a lot of starting powerless and quickly becoming very powerful. Luke goes from a scruffy nerf herder to blowing up the Death Star in the span of 1 movie. Whereas for these characters, we don't get to these higher demigod levels. Epic Level 6 was something I had heard about a lot growing up in gaming. Level 6 is where you're super duper heroic, but you are not superhuman yet. And that felt like a sweet spot for us to be.
How many hit points is Dice K at?
I'm at 15.
Okay.
So how do we find our sweet spot? In the player's handbook, character levels are separated into 4 tiers of play. Let me clarify everything I'm about to say with this caveat. Each tier of play can be great, but there are some serious issues that arise with the way D&D works and how the mechanics of the game affect the stakes as you advance into higher tiers. The divide between them is mainly about the spells the PCs have access to, some of which are specifically designed to remove the stakes of character death from your stories. Tier 1 is when the players are levels 1 through 4. At this level, D&D is much more of a survival game. Death-defying spells and abilities are limited at this level, so when a player goes down, things get tense. Tier 2 is levels 5 all the way through 10. These are your heroic stories. These adventures feel closer to Lord of the Rings or even Castlevania. And then there's a noticeable shift in the stakes of your game when they gain access to raise dead and reincarnate at level 9. Tier 3 is levels 11 through 16. Less grounded stories with more inhuman abilities, but with spells like Resurrection, a character death is now nothing but a minor setback. This is by design, as the stakes of your game should have shifted to the fate of the continent or the region, and less about individual characters. Tier 4 is levels 17 through 20. The fate of the characters is now nowhere near the central focus. It's about the fate of their entire world. If you want crunchier combat and a world-bending magic system with reality-altering powers, that is an awesome story to tell, and one that you have to level up past level 15 or so in D&D in order to tell correctly. It's also the type of story that only makes sense in a high magic setting. And again, that's a cool story to tell, but it's about taste. While every tier of D&D gameplay can be fun, the first two are my personal favorite. It's because I've always been a fan of the classic adventure story, where my heroes feel powerful and skilled, but still vulnerable, still human.
These are the strongest people you're ever going to meet, but they're people. It gives you a much more sort of adventure genre set of stats. Indiana Jones is very smart and strong and quick, but if like a giant Nazi is going to come punch him, he'll die. That sort of added level of spiciness and danger was very fun for us.
This is where your classic action-adventure movies land, like Indiana Jones, The Mummy, Pirates of the Caribbean, or Atlantis. D&D's current rule set just doesn't support this type of storytelling once the adventurers level up to the equivalent of superheroes. If a player character dies, it should be a huge moment for the story and for your party, not a minor setback that they can rectify with a spell and a couple days off. Sure, there's an easy fix where you can just ban certain spells from your game, but you still have the issue where as they level up, they gain more and more HP and have more and more ways to keep death from happening in the first place. The actual solution is, of course, to play a different game. This exact issue is responsible for the rise of OSR, or Old School Renaissance systems, in recent years. Old School Essentials, Shadow Dark, Dungeon Crawl Classics, and lots more are out there, and you should 100% broaden your horizons and check them out. There likely is a better system than D&D if those are the types of stories that you want to tell at your tables. But all my players all know and love D&D already. I know D&D already. We all want to tell stories where heroes can feel like they've grown and changed throughout the game, but also where there is the ever-present threat of character death. And honestly, the more I talk about it, the more I'm convinced that you can't really do both in D&D unless you're just not allowing your players to level up, which also isn't fun for them because they need to feel that progress. This is where Epic Level 6 makes sense, replacing those state-breaking high levels with progression mechanics that feel fun and rewarding, but don't break the game. This isn't for high magic, high-powered campaigns. This is the pulpy adventure level of classic D&D. The heroes can be insanely skilled, but still maintain human levels of vulnerability.
Well, I really wanted for this season to have the feeling that fights can really pop off at I wanted to feel like a pulp story where it's like, it really is, there's a big improvisational quality.
This is how Epic Level 6 actually works. Epic Level 6 has seen a few versions and updates over the years, but the most widely used version was originally designed by Ryan Stoughton for 3rd edition D&D, which he called E6. It's been around for 19 years, and I'll leave a link to his original 2007 post on EN World Forum down below. Ryan goes into way more detail on the mechanics behind E6, so if you're interested, you should absolutely give it a read. The core principle of Epic Level 6 is that the leveling of your player characters is capped at level 6. Makes sense. Every time a player levels up past this, though, instead of actually leveling up, they acquire something called an epic feat.
It literally felt like we were running a different system to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Like everyone, it all felt so unique.
Yeah.
And even like you were doing so much damage with your gun.
I mean, I have repeating shot on a hunting rifle and also piercer, so I crit and added an extra dice.
That's
It's
right,
just gonna be like a-
It was awesome.
This can look like an existing feat, an ability boost, or a future class ability, but with less game-breaking power and no HP increases unless they specifically choose an epic feat that grants them health like Tough. Players feel powerful when compared to the common folk, but are still low enough levels with low enough HP that threats still feel like threats, without you having to escalate them to world-ending levels of danger. You can still have heroic moments and abilities, but also keep the tension that comes from PC deaths actually being a possibility. If you're looking for other ways to add tension to your games, I use a concept called subtle rolls that I stumbled upon from the TV show Community. You can learn more about them here. The reason for capping it at level 6 is because, as I mentioned in the tiers of play earlier, it protects the campaign from game-breaking 4th level spells or higher. Obviously, this is going to change the experience of your players in your game, but there are tons of benefits for the DM as well. First, you have very fast play at every level of the campaign. It also keeps the divide between the casters and the martial characters that sometimes becomes a problem at later levels much smaller, making it fun for every type of player for longer. The impact on magic is probably my favorite thing. You can now give the party 4th level or higher spells, but use them in a single use form, like a scroll or something, where they feel like this otherworldly, super powerful magic instead of just something that everyone gets at this level. The slight creep up in power as the party gains more feats just gives them more options and abilities in their toolbox, but doesn't make them bulletproof. All of a sudden, you get to choose some of the more interesting mid-tier creatures and enemies as in-game bosses. Speaking of that toolbox, we have to talk about the epic feats that actually go in there. Instead of leveling up traditionally, player characters get something called an epic feat, which advances their character without inflating every number on the character sheet. The first type of epic feat is the most obvious: general feats. You gain an available feat that you meet the prerequisites for in the player's handbook or any other source that the game master has allowed. These are your origin feats, general feats, and your fighting style feats. Fighting style feats are new to D&D 5.5, so I would limit these to 1 for those who don't already have the fighting style feature, and maybe up to 2 for those who do, like your fighters, paladins, and rangers. If someone wants to take one as an epic feat though, it needs to make sense for their character. Maybe don't let them take archery if they've never touched a bow in their life. The next few epic feats are a little different, each with different benefits and some with special features and requirements. Feel free to pause at any moment or reference Ryan's link below if you want to read along, but the gist is gain a +2 to an ability score of your choice, gain an additional hit die from your class, gain an extra 1st level spell slot, increase your proficiency bonus by 1, increase damage for cantrips, double your proficiency in a particular skill, gain proficiency in 2 skills. All of these serve to give your players more abilities and cool things to do with their turns without slowing the game down or making the characters feel. Technically, your epic level doesn't have to be 6. You can run an epic level 8 game for a slightly higher power level and an epic level 1 game to make it extra lethal, or even epic level 20 if you want your campaign to go beyond the power scale of the player's handbook. This should be very clear at this point, but if you are planning to run an epic level campaign, no matter the number you choose, you need to be very clear with your players about this ahead of time. Some players may be playing a build that only really gets good at level 7 or beyond, so you gotta tell them in advance or they're gonna be pretty annoyed when they find out. If this sounds cool to you and you're thinking about adjusting your current campaign to this, talk to your players. And you have to understand that if one of them is not on board, you probably shouldn't do it. Save it for the next one. If you do plan to shift from standard D&D to epic level 6, I highly recommend checking out that link from Ryan Stoughton in the description of this video. And if you've ran an epic level campaign before, I'd love to hear your experiences, the good and the bad, in the comments. Or if you're planning on running one but have questions about how to implement it, feel free to leave those comments down below as well. This community does a pretty good job of answering them. If they don't, I do office hours for the Tabletop University Patreon supporters, and the link is down below. If this video has been useful to you, liking and subscribing makes it easier for me to make more of them. Hit the bell, hype the video, whatever YouTube is telling you to do at this point. If you're a player and the idea of having death be a reality for your PC sounds cool to you, send this to your DM and have a discussion about whether you want to implement this in your current campaign or, maybe in the next one. Epic level 6 can bring the stakes of PC death back into your stories. And at the end of the day, that story is all that matters. This has been Tabletop University. I have been Sam. Thank you to my patrons for their support. Thank you for watching.